Welcome, friend. I'm glad you're here again. Come in, get comfortable. Let your head sink into the pillow. Let your shoulders soften, and let the day loosen its hold on you, finger by finger. There is nothing left to do now, nothing left to decide. The evening has taken over, and it knows its work well. Tonight we drift once more into the wind in the willows, into a chapter with a long, old-fashioned name. Like summer tempests came his tears. It is a story of homecoming, of friends who kept watch, of supper by candlelight and a great secret told beside the fire, and of the deep, quiet night that settles over the river before anything needs to happen at all. So breathe in, slowly, and out, more slowly still, and come with me, down to the house in the riverbank. You remember where we left our friend Toad, dripping and weary, clinging to the edge of a hole in the bank, and a small bright light coming towards him through the darkness. The water rat put out a neat little brown paw, gripped Toad firmly by the scruff of the neck, and gave a great hoist and a pull, and up came the waterlogged Toad, slowly but surely over the edge, till at last he stood safe and sound in the hall, streaked with mud and weed to be sure, with the river water still streaming off him, but happy, deeply happy, to find himself once more in the house of a friend. "Oh, Ratty," he cried, "I've been through such time since I saw you last, you can't think." And he would have begun the whole story then and there, standing in a puddle of his own making. But the rat looked him up and down and said, gravely and firmly, "Toad, you go off upstairs at once. Take off that old cotton rag, clean yourself thoroughly, put on some of my clothes, and try and come down looking like a gentleman if you can." And Toad, who caught sight of himself just then in the looking glass over the hat stand, with the rusty black bonnet perched over one eye, decided not to argue. He went quickly and humbly up the stairs to the rat's little dressing room, and there in the slanting morning light, he had a thorough wash and brush up, warm water, clean towels, the good smell of soap. He changed into dry clothes and stood a long while before the glass, feeling layer by layer like himself again. The window was open a crack, and below it the river talked quietly to itself, the way it always did, and everything was mild and safe and slow. By the time he came down again, luncheon was on the table, and very glad Toad was to see it. Bread and cheese and cold meats and pickles, a jug of cool water from the spring, and the sun laying long warm stripes across the cloth. Through the open window came the smell of the river and of cut grass from somewhere along the bank, and the small, contented sounds of a summer noon, the water lapping under the sill, a boat knocking gently somewhere against its mooring, a reed warbler going quietly on and on about nothing at all. While they ate, Toad told the rat all his adventures, dwelling chiefly, as you might expect, on his own cleverness. But the more he talked and boasted, the more grave and silent the rat became. And when at last Toad had talked himself to a standstill, the rat spoke to him, quietly, as only an old friend can, about the prison and the canal and the stolen motor car, and about how much trouble a toad can gather about himself when he will not sit still. And Toad, who was at heart a good-hearted animal and never really minded being jawed by those who loved him, heaved a deep sigh and said very nicely and humbly, "Quite right, Ratty. How sound you always are. I've been a conceited old ass, I can quite see that. But now I'm going to be a good toad and not do it anymore." And he leaned back in his chair, quite at peace with himself. "We'll have our coffee and a quiet chat, and then I'll just stroll quietly down to Toad Hall and get into clothes of my own and set things going again on the old lines." "Stroll quietly down to Toad Hall," cried the rat. Do you mean to say you haven't heard?" "Heard what?" said Toad, turning rather pale. "Go on, Ratty. Don't spare me. What haven't I heard?" And so the rat told him, slowly and seriously, how the stoats and the weasels, the wild wooders, had crept up one dark night while Toad was away, and moved themselves into Toad Hall, and had been living there ever since, eating his breakfasts, sleeping in his beds, telling the world that they were there to stay. Toad leaned his elbows on the table and his chin on his paws, and a large tear welled up in each of his eyes, overflowed, and splashed on the table. Plop, plop. "Go on, Ratty," he murmured. "Tell me all. The worst is over. I am an animal again. I can bear it. Now I will tell you what Toad did that afternoon, friend, because it is exactly what you or I might have done." He could not quite believe it. A thing like that has to be seen before the heart will accept it. So while the rat dozed in his chair by the fire, Toad slipped quietly out and walked in the warm afternoon up the dusty road towards his own dear house. The hedges were full of the hum of high summer, bees working the honeysuckle, a wood pigeon murmuring somewhere deep in the green. The road itself was soft with white dust, warm through the soles of his borrowed shoes, and every step of it was familiar to him. This bend where the old chestnut leaned over the wall, that stile where the footpath wandered off across the meadows towards the weir. The great trees of the park rose up beyond the wall, just as they always had, their heads perfectly still in the heavy golden air. And Toad walked on, swinging his stick, telling himself it would all turn out to be nonsense. For how could anything really be wrong on an afternoon like this, when the whole valley lay drowsing in the sun, and the larks were nearly too lazy to sing? But at the gates a sentry challenged him, and there was a stir behind the paling and a bang, and something whistled high over his head, and Toad thought it wisest on the whole to lie down flat in the road for a while, and then to walk quietly back the way he had come. And being Toad, he did not give up there. He came back by the riverway and took the rat's little boat and rowed up the quiet creek that borders the garden of Toad Hall. It was very peaceful on the creek. The willows leaned low over the water on either side, trailing their long green fingers. The light came down through the leaves in little moving coins of gold. More hens paddled unhurriedly out of his way and folded themselves back into the reeds. And Toad rowed gently, gently, the oars dipping softly, drip and dip and drip again, hardly more than a whisper on the still water, while the great house drew slowly nearer through the trees, sleepy and gray and beautiful in the late sun. And just as he passed under the little bridge, there came a crash, and a great stone dropped from above, smashed clean through the bottom of the boat, and the boat filled and sank, and Toad found himself for the second time that week swimming in deep water, while somewhere above him, unseen, small voices laughed and laughed. He waded ashore and walked home along the towpath, heavy and dripping. It was a long, slow walk, and a thoughtful one. The heat had gone out of the day. The creek behind him settled back into its silence, as though nothing at all had happened. A fish rose somewhere with a soft plop, and the rings widened and smoothed away. And the evening sun, low and kind, laid his long shadow out on the path before him, and dried him little by little as he went. And it is a curious thing, friend, but true, that even on the day when everything has gone wrong, a long walk home along a river in the last of the light will quietly put half of it right again, all by itself. And when the rat heard the whole story and remembered that it was his boat in his boat cloak too, at the bottom of the creek, he said a number of things that Toad thoroughly deserved, and ended, as good friends do, with, "But never mind, supper is nearly ready, and the others will be here soon. And here, friend, the day begins to fold itself down at last. Outside, the sky over the river turned from gold to rose to a deep, tender blue. The swifts made their last high circles over the water and came down to rest. One by one, the lamps were lit in the little house in the bank, and the round windows glowed out warm across the darkening water. The cloth was laid, the kettle sang its small song on the hob, and the good smell of supper filled the low rooms. And there is no better hour in any house, friend, than that hour, when the lamps are lit and the table is laid, and the night outside only makes the inside warmer. They had just finished their meal and drawn their armchairs to the fire when there came a heavy knock at the door. It was the badger. He had all the appearance of one who had been many nights away from home and all its little comforts. His shoes were muddy, his rough coat tousled. He came solemnly up to Toad, shook him by the paw, and said, "Welcome home, Toad. Alas, what am I saying? Home indeed. This is a poor homecoming. Unhappy Toad." And then, having said his say, he turned to the table, drew up a chair, and helped himself to a large slice of cold pie. For the badger, as the rat whispered kindly, was always rather low when he was wanting his victuals, and would be quite a different animal in half an hour. And presently there came another, lighter knock, and in walked the mole, very shabby and unwashed, with bits of hay and straw sticking in his fur, but beaming, simply beaming. "Hooray, here's old Toad," he cried. "Fancy having you back again." And he danced round him, right there in the lamplight. "We never dreamt you would turn up so soon. And oh, how good it was, friend." The four of them together again, in the small warm room, the fire settling in the grate, the mole at the supper table, helping himself liberally to cold beef and pickles, for he had not had a bite since breakfast. Toad on the hearthrug, telling his adventures rather more grandly than they had happened, the rat shaking his head, and the badger eating his way, slowly and solemnly, through his pie, while outside the windows, the last of the daylight slipped quietly away down the river. There are rooms, friend, that hold their warmth the way a kettle holds its heat, and this was one of them. The lamplight lay soft on the old brown furniture, on the rows of books, and the pictures of river reaches and quiet pools. The curtains stirred, just barely, in the night air from the water. And under all the talk and the clink of knives and plates, you could still hear it if you listened. The river, going by outside in the dark, slow and full and forever. While they talked, the mole told how things stood at Toad Hall. Sentries at every gate, sharp eyes at every window, the wild wooders lying snug and confident within. "The badger and I have been round and round the place by night and by day," he said. "Always the same thing." And at that, all three of them began to talk at once, each with his own plan, louder and louder, until a thin, dry voice made itself heard, saying, "Be quiet at once, all of you." And instantly everyone was silent. It was the badger who had finished his pie, and such was the respect commanded by that solid, admirable animal that not another word was spoken while he rose and stood before the fireplace, thinking deeply. The clock ticked. The fire whispered. The three of them waited, as you wait for a grandfather to speak. "Toad," he said at last severely, "you bad, troublesome little animal. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? What would your father have said, my old friend, if he had known of all your goings-on?" And Toad, who was on the sofa by this time, rolled over on his face, shaken by sobs of contrition. "There, there," went on the badger more kindly. "Never mind. Stop crying. We're going to let bygones be bygones and turn over a new leaf. But the stoats are on guard at every point. and they make the best sentinels in the world. It's quite useless to think of attacking the place. They're too strong for us." "Then it's all over," sobbed Toad, crying into the sofa cushions. "Come, cheer up, Toady," said the Badger. "There are more ways of getting back a place than taking it by storm. I haven't said my last word yet. Now I'm going to tell you a great secret." Toad sat up slowly and dried his eyes, for secrets had an immense attraction for him, and the room itself seemed to lean in a little closer, the fire burning low and golden, the shadows gathering kindly in the corners, as the Badger lowered his voice and said slowly and impressively, "There is an underground passage, a passage, friend, that led from the riverbank, quite near where they sat, under the meadows, under the garden, right up into the very middle of Toad Hall. Think of it, while the wind moved over the summer grass above and the cattle drowsed in the fields. There it lay, all these years, a little dark road under the world, quiet as sleep itself." "Oh, nonsense, Badger," said Toad airily. "I know every inch of Toad Hall, inside and out." But the Badger only looked at him. "My young friend," he said, "your father, who was a worthy animal and a particular friend of mine, made that passage himself long before you were born. Many a long winter's evening he and I walked it together. Don't let my son know of it," he said. "He's a good boy, but very light and volatile in character, and simply cannot hold his tongue." And Toad, though he opened his mouth to protest, looked into the fire for a moment and thought of his father, who had walked that dark little road with the Badger in the winters before he was born, and had known him so well, and had loved the old house so. And he shut his mouth again, which was perhaps the wisest thing he did that year. The fire burned lower. The rat fetched another log and set it on, and the flames took it slowly, without hurry. And in that deep, comfortable quiet, the four of them sat and thought about the passage, each in his own way, the Badger calmly as one who had walked it, the rat carefully as one who plans, the mole wonderingly, for he loved all tunnels and secret ways, being a tunneler himself by birth and by trade, and Toad grandly, of course, already in his mind, marching down it at the head of a procession with a band playing. And then the Badger unfolded the rest of it, quietly while the candles burned down. There was to be a banquet at Toad Hall tomorrow night, the chief weasel's birthday, and all the weasels would be gathered in the banqueting hall, feasting and laughing, suspecting nothing, with no weapons by them at all. And the passage, the secret passage, came up through the floor, into the little butler's pantry, right next door to the banqueting hall itself. "It's the chance of a lifetime," said the Badger, and he settled back into his chair and would say no more that night. And do you know what the mole had been doing that very morning, friend? He confessed it, chuckling over the last of the cold beef. He had found Toad's washerwoman dress, dried out and hanging by the fire, and he had put it on, bonnet and all, and walked boldly up to the gates of Toad Hall. And when the sentries laughed at him, he had said in a high, quavery old voice, "Good morning, gentlemen. Want any washing done today?" And then leaning in, as one who knows things, he had told them in the strictest confidence that 100 bloodthirsty badgers were coming to attack the place this very night, and 6 boatloads of rats up the river, and a picked body of toads across the orchard. And the sentries had stopped laughing, and looked at one another, and hurried off, every one of them, to tell somebody something. "You silly ass, Mole!" cried Toad. "You've been and spoilt everything." "Mole," said the Badger in his dry, quiet way, "I perceive you have more sense in your little finger than some other animals have in the whole of their fat bodies. Toad, be quiet. I begin to have great hopes of you, mole." And the mole glowed quietly, the way one glows when the person one admires most in the world says such a thing. And Toad was frantically jealous, until the rat pressed another helping of supper on him, which helped considerably. For you see, friend, the more the weasels worried tonight about attacks that would never come, the more weary and jumpy they would be tomorrow, while our four friends slept soundly with a secret passage in their pocket. It was all working out, the way things do work out in the end. When good friends sit together by a fire, and the oldest and wisest of them has a plan. And so at last the evening wound itself down. The badger, deep in his armchair, was already nodding, for he had had a hard night before and a long day. His breathing grew slow and regular, and presently he was asleep where he sat, with his muddy shoes stretched out to the warmth. The mole finished his supper, down to the last pickle, and yawned a yawn that nearly folded him in half. The rat went quietly about the room, as he always did, banking down the fire, setting the guard before it, blowing out the lamps, one by one. And Toad was shown at last to a little room under the eaves. It was a small room and plain, nothing like his own grand bedroom at Toad Hall, with its Tudor window and its tall carved bed. And yet, do you know, he would not have traded it that night for any room in the world. The candle made a small, steady island of gold on the nightstand. The sheets were cool and clean and smelled faintly of lavender. The pillow was deep, and the window stood open a hand's breadth on the summer night. He could hear the river, moving slow and full below the bank, saying the same soft thing it had said all his life. And for once, Toad did not make plans. He did not compose speeches. He did not even admire himself for very long. He lay in the dark, warm and dry and fed and forgiven, among friends who had watched over his house while he was away. And one by one, his thoughts wandered off and did not come back. Outside, the night lay deep over the river valley. The moon rose slowly over the trees of the park and over the old gray roof of Toad Hall itself, where the lights burned late and anxious sentries peered out at shadows. Let them peer, friend. Let them worry. It is nothing to us. Along the riverbank, the willows stood perfectly still, their leaves silvered on one side by the moon. The meadows lay out flat and gray and sweet-smelling under the stars. A white mist began to gather, ankle-deep, along the watercourses, the way it does on warm nights when the river breathes. An owl went over on soft wings once and was gone. The water slid by, smooth and dark and patient, carrying the moon's reflection gently downstream, stretching it and gathering it and stretching it again. And somewhere beneath the meadows, quiet and forgotten, the old secret passage lay waiting in the dark, as it had waited for years and years, in no hurry at all. For tomorrow is another story. And in the small house in the riverbank, all was still. Four friends, all together again, safe under one roof. The badger in his chair, the mole and the rat in their beds, and Toad, home at last in everything but name, breathing slowly, dreaming of nothing. The fire fell to soft gray ash. The clock ticked, slower it seemed than before, and the river went on murmuring its one long word all through the night. And if you are still awake, friend, still floating here with me, then stay a moment longer at that dark window and look out. The valley is all silver and shadow. Far off on its little hill, Toad Hall stands quiet under the moon. And whatever tomorrow brings to it, tonight it is only an old house asleep among old trees. Nearer, the river turns its slow curve past the bank, and the mist moves over the water meadows like a second, softer river. Nothing is happening anywhere. And it is the loveliest kind of nothing. The kind you can lean your whole weight on. The kind that holds you up all night long without ever growing tired. Let that be your sound now, friend. That slow river going by in the dark. You are safe like Toad, warm like Toad, watched over like Toad. Everything that seems so urgent today has been set down outside the door, and it will keep till morning. It always keeps till morning. Let your breath grow long and deep. Let your thoughts wander off one by one and not come back. There is nothing more to do tonight. The plan is made. The friends are sleeping. The moon is keeping watch. Sleep now, friend. Sleep deep and well.